Hey everybody, we're here at the Northwest Carriage Museum and I'm with Jerry Bowman. Jerry, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Mark.
I hear you're the jack of all trades here, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the museum here.
Well, our museum opened in 2002. We're celebrating our 21st year. I've been associated with the museum for about 18 of those years, and I'm the restorer, the conservator, the historian, and I love to talk about the carriages.
Nice. So what do we have here as far as carriages and any other thing that you can talk about?
We have what we consider to be one of the finest carriage collections in America. We started with 21 carriages back in 2002, and we are now at 63, and 64's in the shop and 65's in a carport at my home, and we haven't started working on that one yet. But we have, again, one of the finest collections of carriages. We have elegant carriages, we have sleighs, we have buggies, we have work wagons, a little bit of everything, plus thousands of period artifacts from the late 19th century.
Awesome. And I assume that you probably have a few of your favorites?
They're all actually my favorites. People ask me about which one's my favorite all the time, and I say it's kind of like, which kid do I like best?
Well, do you mind showing us a few of your favorites?
I would love to.
Awesome. Lead the way.
Mark, this is our 1888 Stagecoach. It was actually made by the Henderson Company out of Stockton, California. And it's in a conserved condition. It's one of our crowd favorites. It was actually used in the movies during the heyday of Hollywood. It was once owned by the Fat Jones movie stables down in Hollywood, California. Fat Jones is a name probably you don't know much about, but they supplied all the horses to Bonanza.
Oh, wow. So, I do know that.
So this stagecoach was a 9-passenger stagecoach. There were 3 people with their back sitting there, 3 people with their back sitting over here, and there used to be a bench seat that went across here, and that was a cheaper seat because you had nothing to lean back on.
Oh, wow. I
don't know about you, but if I rode 100 miles with nothing to lean back on at my age, I wouldn't walk for a week when I got done with that trip. So. Well,
speaking of that, the suspension on this is a little different than most, right?
It is. A lot of our carriages in the museum have what we would call leaf springs today. They are on a carriage, they were actually called elliptical springs. This particular vehicle has 3-inch leather straps. They're called through braces, and if I show you how easy this moves, look at the rocking sensation with 2 fingers.
Even more the need for having a back support, right?
Yeah, that was their idea of comfort back in those days.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a little differently defined today. But this is a totally, even in the present condition, this is a totally usable vehicle. We could actually hook up horses to this right now and take you for a ride around Raymond.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So if I direct your attention on the inside of the vehicle, you'll see a poster in there from a movie called Virginia City. I believe it was 1939, and that's Humphrey Bogart and Errol Flynn sitting in our very same stagecoach from that movie.
That's crazy. So what was this used for?
This was one of the primary modes of transportation across the country. There were famous stagecoach runs that went all the way across the country, but this particular one was actually used in and around the Sacramento area of California. It used to go between Sacramento and San Francisco, and so it was used to carry passengers as well as mail and some freight, but mostly passengers.
Gotcha. And you said, like, how long would it take necessarily for a piece of mail to...
The contract with the U.S. government between St. Louis and San Francisco was to get a letter across the country in 29 days without penalty. So they basically had a month to deliver them from St. Louis, Missouri to San Francisco, California. They had about a month to get a letter across the country back in the 1890s. One piece of mail.
One piece of mail, 29 days.
Pretty interesting.
Oh, that's awesome. And so we've got this going across the country, and maybe we have something a little more city-like?
We do. This was traveling those rough roads, the mountain roads, the trails. You've seen those in the movies and stuff, but let me show you a really beautiful carriage that took you around big towns.
All right, let's go check it out.
So Mark, this is the Hansom Cab I was telling you about. This was a taxi cab in New York City, Central Park, back in the 1890s, early 1900s, and it's a remarkable vehicle. These two-wheeled vehicles were called gigs, and they made great taxi cabs back in the day because in crowded towns with four-wheeled vehicles, if you had to go and turn around and go the opposite way, you'd have to go around multiple blocks. With these, they actually teach the horse to do a stationary turn, and it pivots right in the road. So the driver sits way up at the top, and two people want to go on the cab ride. They hail the cab over, and they get in. And I work on this stuff, so I'm so impressed with the technology that they had. This is called a wing door. Watch that door over there as I close this. You're looking at something that was built in 1890s. I mean, it's remarkable technology. But so two people get in the cab. It's a rainy day in New York Central Park. They've closed their wing doors. And on this window right here where that strap is, if we follow that strap up to the driver, he has a crank in front of him. So you've closed your wing doors, he cranks down the window, now you're nice and secure from the weather and the snow, the rain or whatever, you're nice and secure in there. And in the very top of the cab, he has a trap door, a little hole about this big, and that's how he talks to you. You open that up, where do you want to go? You tell him where you want to go and he delivers you to your destination. And when you get there, he opens up that trap door and he makes sure you pay him before he cranks the window.
So you're trapped in there if you're not paying.
Yeah, but these were beautiful cabs. Over in Europe, they actually used them for private cabs as well. Some people remember them from the Sherlock Holmes movies, but this particular cab was a commercial cab in New York City. And in our country, they were primarily commercial cabs, very few private owners.
Now, going from the last one, the Stagecoach, to this, are we talking like a different material of wood?
The wood was the same, but the craftsmanship, the woodworking on the body, the paint, the wheels, the spring system, that all contributed to the overall cost of the vehicle. You have to keep in mind, back in the day that this was on the road, you and I, as kind of normal guys, we were making $300 to $400 a year, okay? So some of these vehicles were $45, which is what I would have been driving. Some of these, like this cab here, probably would have run you $1,300, $1,400.
For the cab itself?
For the cab itself.
How about for a ride in the cab?
For a ride back in those days, it was less than $1.
Okay.
Yeah, less than $1, yeah.
Nice. Well, you can definitely tell the difference in the craftsmanship from the previous Stagecoach to this.
Yeah, and actually even the paint job on these, which was really remarkable. You know, back in the day when a carriage was in raw wood form still, they called that in the white, and paint was not pre-mixed in those days. So painters had to actually mix up their own paint. So they used a lot of black back in those days because they could get black consistent. If you started mixing other colors, like if you were a painter and I was a painter, you mixed a red, I mixed a red, little slightly different colors. Your next batch of red might be just a little shade different than your last batch. So they used a lot of black, and then they offset some of those colors with reds and what we call hunter greens today, maybe some deep blues, things like that, but most of them were black.
And so we've gone from the Stagecoach out in the middle of rugged terrain into, let's say, the Big Apple, and just being able to move about the city. What if I were a very affluent, like I had my own private driver and wanted to get around the city?
Many people had those kind of carriages, and we have several in our collection. Let me show you one in particular that I think you'll be really interested in.
Lead the way.
So Mark, this is one of those elegant carriages I was telling you about. If you were a lady of wealth back in the 1890 period of time, you might have been riding around in something like this. This is called a C-Spring Victoria, named after Queen Victoria of England. And it's a lovely ladies' carriage for a kind of a sunny day. It does have a canopy top on it, a convertible top, but mostly, if you see how wide it is, it was because the ladies used to wear the big wide skirts. But the suspension system on here is just remarkable. It has elliptical springs, leaf springs we call them today, as well as an elaborate C-spring system. And I'm going to just kind of stand here and show you the elaborate suspension system. How'd you like to ride in this?
Oh, wow.
It is beautiful and a very comfortable ride. And these they had tensioners on those springs. So if this was a particular lady's carriage, they could tighten that up if she liked a firmer ride, or if she liked to float a little bit, we could make her float.
And gotta keep her happy, right?
You gotta keep her happy, that's right. The other thing I tell a lot of our visitors that come into the museum, especially the ladies, is you knew you were riding in style when your fender mudguards were patent leather. And it was real patent leather back in those days. Today, if you go buy patent leather, it's a plastic composite. Back in those days, it was truly a hand-oiled leather that somebody spent hundreds of hours hand rubbing that out to get this gleam on it. So this added to the expense of this carriage. This carriage would have probably run you about $1,400, $1,500 back in 1895. It's just an absolutely beautiful carriage.
And I see that it's not just a black carriage either.
It's not. There's a lot of black on it, but this maroon color was popular. Hunter greens, the dark greens that we see today, they were kind of popular for undercarriage parts. It's actually kind of rare. Most bodies were painted the black color, but there were carriages that were painted some other colors as well, and this one was painted that beautiful maroon color, plus the beautiful pinstriping on it.
Right. Now, I actually had one of the carriages that I saw that looked really cool to me, and I was reading a little bit about it. Would you mind if I led us over to the one that I liked?
I would love to. I'll tell you about it.
All right, follow me. All right, so this is the one that I kind of was interested in because I was doing a little bit of reading on it, and so maybe we do a review.
You want me to tell you about this one?
Yes, please.
This is actually called a turn-under trap, and it's one of our most unique vehicles that we have in the museum. And to my knowledge, we are the only museum in the country that has one on display. Now, this was handmade in 1892. It was made by a company called Stratton out of Muncie, Indiana. And what's really neat about it, the way it's set up right now, it's officially called a sporting buggy. And if you step back, it kind of looks pretty sporty.
It's
looks
got
like
a coupe look to it,
a little
yeah.
coupe look to it. You could move pretty quick on this. But if you had a few more friends with you, watch what you could do with this.
Uh-oh.
Again, you're looking at something from 1892.
That is crazy.
Isn't it beautiful? Now got a four-seater, and you can take your friends for a nice ride in the park.
Just like that.
Just like that.
That's
Very
crazy.
unique. And again, everything on here was handcrafted. It's just remarkable to me that they had the skills and the tools. This was not done on machinery. This was done with hand tools. Just remarkable piece of history here.
And that's crazy. Now, does the suspension change when you pop the seat, or is it just kind of like
No, this particular vehicle, Mark, has what they call a front and rear elliptical spring. So it has basically what we would call a leaf spring today. It has one in the front and one in the back, and it actually has a pretty cushiony ride. Very comfortable to ride in.
Nice. Yeah, I've noticed like on the Stagecoach, the springs ran this way, and these run.
They were lateral springs, and
Yeah.
there were some metal springs. The Stagecoach had the leather through braces, but there are some carriages that have long metal springs on them as well. There's all kinds of spring combinations. There were elliptical front and rear, elliptical on each wheel. There was a 3/4 elliptical that they put on the back of some carriages. Just depends on who made them.
Gotcha. All right, Jerry, so we've seen a variety of stagecoaches and carriages here that you have. What else do you have in the museum that could be for adults and possibly the rest of the family?
You know, there's so many artifacts outside of the vehicle collection, the carriage collection. We have period clothing from the 1900s. We have a collection of carriage bells, chime bells they're called, that used to go on all the sleighs. There's just so much to look at. In fact, a lot of people come in and they kind of forget about our carriage collection, and they're just looking at the artifacts. It's incredible. We have kids' toys from the 1900s. Beautiful collection.
Well, speaking of kids' toys, we have an entire room dedicated for kids, right?
We do. Interactive room, and I'd love to show it to you.
Awesome. I'd love to see it.
Come on this way. So Mark, this is our interactive area. Families love this. Kids particularly love this because we have, throughout the museum, you can get up and close and personal with some of the carriages. Back here, you can actually touch things and feel things and whatever. We can teach you how to build a wheel. which is what the wheelwrights used to do. We can talk about blacksmithing, how they made all the springs back in those days. We have a one-room classroom that kids can learn about what it was like to go to school in a one-room classroom back in the day. We have a vehicle that kids can get up and take their pictures of. Actually, we'll even let the adults get up there and take pictures of it. And one of the fun things for kids is we have our talking horse, and they love learning how to drive a horse as if they were driving a big stagecoach or a wagon. So.
And then we also have...
We do. We have a beautiful little gift shop. It's not big, but my wife and the staff do a wonderful job at putting in some unique visitor gifts. And so there's always something for kids or for parents to buy there and remember the museum. So yeah, we have a great gift shop, great museum, great interactive area, a lot of fun things to do in the area.
Okay, and so for our viewers out there that aren't able to just jump up and travel here, but they want to find out a little bit more about the place, where can they locate you guys?
We have a beautiful website at www.nwcarriagemuseum.org, or if you just type in Northwest Carriage Museum on any search engine, we'll come right up. We have a gorgeous gift or a website. It shows all of our carriages. It talks about how to book tours. We love doing tours at the Carriage Museum. We do 70 to 100 formal tours a year, car clubs, RV clubs, church groups, schools, service clubs, you name it, they come here and they have a great time.
Oh, that's awesome. Jerry, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming in and seeing us. Come back and visit us again someday.
I will. In the meantime, I'm going to go hop on this talking horse.
There you go.
All right, let's see what you got, big boy. Time to slow this baby down. I gotta go.